Orton with Team Georgia Marketplace. We'll go ahead and get started with the DOL Pcard Reconciliation and Approval webinar. This webinar is going to cover the reconciliation process in Team Georgia Marketplace. So you should have, if you're on this webinar, you should have already taken the DOAS online Pcard Reconciliation and Approval class, and then also taken the test. And we are going to walk through basically how to go in and reconcile your Pcard transactions. If you're a reconciler, if you're a card holder, you're actually called a reconciler. You'll go in and take a look at your transactions and upload copies, scanned copies of your receipts, and then code the transactions against the budget. This webinar is being recorded, so you will receive a link to it in the next few days if you want to go back and watch it. You can also go and retake the class anytime that you want on the DOAS through the LMS. Go and take the class again if you need a refresher on it. And one of the things I want to do is show you where to find what are called quick reference guides, which are great. So you should have I'll show you how to get to the DOAS website and pull up the quick reference guides. So if you open your browser and you go to doas.ga.gov, brings up the Department of Administrative Service site, and if you highlight over the Team Georgia resources, you will see Team Georgia Marketplace. And there's a lot of information on this page. Specifically, I want to show you underneath the TGM for state agencies. If you click on that link and then scroll down, there's different things about queries that you can run, and then also if you click on this TGM quick reference guide, it will launch a list of all of our quick reference guides. These are just 1 or 2 page sheets that kind of they're small, condensed step-by-step on how to perform a certain action within Team Georgia Marketplace. We'll slow down just a little bit because it looks like it's the webinar tool is taking a little time to show the page. But so when you get to the quick reference guides, again, I'm going to go back and just show that again. But you go from the DOAS website to Team Georgia Resources, and then highlight and click on Team Georgia Marketplace. You'll scroll down to the TGM for state agencies. And then if you click on the TGM quick reference guides, which is down at the bottom, it will launch a list of all of the quick reference guides. Again, they're 1 or 2 page sheets that walk you through step by step. So really today the main ones we're going to go through are the reconcile a Pcard transaction and then also approve a Pcard transaction. But it's a good idea to go back in and if you want to take a look at how to link up a PO, tomorrow's webinar is on requisitioning, and it's going to be ordering things off a statewide contract and using your Pcard to when you order things off a statewide contract, so you can see how then once the transaction comes in, how you take a transaction and you split it across and link it to the PO lines. So each one of these guides walks through step by step how to do some of the things that we're going to do today. So you should have received an email from DOL that provides you the user ID and password instructions on how to get into Team Georgia Marketplace. Also may be called TeamWorks. So TeamWorks is the overall name of the application, but Team Georgia Marketplace is specifically around the procurement modules. And so you should be receiving, if you did not get that this morning, you should get it sometime today or tomorrow. That, of course, is if you have taken all of the required training to get into the system. So if you did not take a class, then for the TGM modules, then you don't get access into the system until you've taken those classes and passed the test that go along with each one of those classes. So if you didn't get one, that might be the reason. You might want to go back and check your emails and find out how to take those classes. So this is the, I'm going to log in first into the system, and this is just a sandbox environment, but you'll get the link to the actual production environment. So on the left-hand side, underneath the TeamWorks Financial Systems, you'll put in your user ID and your password, and you can click on Sign On. And of course, when you first log in, you'll probably be set up to be prompted to go through and set up what password hint questions. So pretty common for most systems where you have to put in 3 questions and put in the answers each time. If you get locked out, you can go in there, or if you forget your password, you can go in there and put those questions and reset your password. So to kind of walk you through that process of the first time that you get in. And then one of the first things that you want to do to see your Pcard transactions, and when you log in, you're going to see your transactions. If you had any transactions that were for the September 27th statement, those are the transactions that's going to be the first month that you're going to do in Team Georgia Marketplace. So hopefully you have you can start scanning those receipts that you've got and get them in a PDF format so that you can upload them and link them to the transactions. But you will, so the ones for September will not be paper-based. They'll be done, and they won't be done in FARS. They'll actually be done in Team Georgia Marketplace. So the fastest way that I like to find the list of transactions that I need to do a reconciliation process on is to set up my pagelet on my home page. And to do that, and this is one-time setup that you'll do, you'll click on the content link, and then you see these TGMP pagelets. You want to pick, if you're a card holder, you want to click your Pcard stage charges. And then if you're an approver of transactions, so if you're on here and you've got people that you approve their transactions, then you want to click on the Pcard verified charges. And so what these pagelets will do is each time you don't have to go and search for your transaction. Every morning, every afternoon when you log in, those transactions are already on your home page when you log into the application, so that you can just click on them and start. It's kind of your list of things to do, basically. And they'll automatically be on your homepage. You don't have to go search for them. So we load a file every morning around, it's any time between 8 and 10 o'clock. The file comes in from the bank, and it's for your previous day's postings. So if you ordered something on, or you used your Pcard on Monday, most of the time you'll see that transaction around 10 o'clock on Wednesday. So you'd order it on Monday, and then if it gets posted to the bank on Tuesday, we get that file on Wednesday morning and load that into the system, and you see those transactions in there. So you don't have to wait until the end of the month to start doing your Pcard reconciliation. As soon as those transactions come up, you can go ahead and scan your receipts and attach them and code them. And so transactions all get loaded with a status of staged, and as a reconciler you will change them from staged to verified, and then as an approver you will change them from verified to approved. So you go ahead and you just click those transactions, and then go ahead and click on, after you've done that, you want to click on the personalized layout. It defaults to having 2 columns, and this is just how you set up your home page. I like to use 3 columns, and then I like to take the pagelets and highlight them and use the arrows to move them over to the right-hand side. And again, this is just one-time setup that you'll do, and then it'll be that way every time you log into the system. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. And so now what you'll see when I come to my home page and I've logged in is I will see a list of, and I've got access to multiple people's cards in this environment. So you can see, I can see a list of their transactions that are currently sitting out there that are in a stage status. Okay. So they come up automatically, and there's really 2 ways I can kind of work on this list. If I want to click on the person's employee ID, then it would pull up all of the transactions for that employee onto the reconciliation page. But if I want to just reconcile one transaction, then I just click on the transaction number. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and click on this Toner Charge Corporation, and it will launch a new window. and it'll bring up just that one transaction. Okay, so here's the one transaction that's been pulled up on the screen, and you'll notice it basically has the transaction date. This, of course, is an August transaction, but we're just in a sandbox environment. When you log into production, you should just see your September charges. It'll have the date the transaction happened. This is of course, the merchant name, and the status is staged. Okay, as what's called a reconciler or a card holder, you'll be able to set this from staged to verified. You won't have access to the approved. If you're an approver, then you will the transactions will show up on your page when they've been verified by the card holder, and you have the ability to set it from from verified to approve the transaction. Or if you need to send it back to the card holder, let's say they've got the wrong receipt or they've coded it wrong or they're missing something on it, then you can set it back to staged, and it's a good idea to use the comment in there to tell them kind of why it's getting set back to a staged status. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and you'll notice that when the transaction first comes up, that the budget status is set to not checked. Okay. And if I wanted to see the actual information, some merchants, I can click on this line details, some merchants provide the actual detailed information about the charges. Okay, this merchant isn't going to do that, but I'll show you a Staples one where they actually give you the line by line of what was purchased. So to attach my scanned copy of my receipt, I click on the comments bubble. It opens up the line comments. Put in a comment, for example, I can say, receipt attached. And then I click on the attach button. And it's just like a normal Windows app, where I click on choose the file. I go out and find the scanned copy of the file. We recommend that you do your attachments in a PDF format. Or a JPEG, which are the smaller file sizes. Don't use TIFFs or bitmaps, or those are just large file sizes. A PDF is usually the best to do. So when you scan it, you can use a multifunctional device, scan it as a PDF, or do it as a JPEG. Just to save the state resources is to use a JPEG or a PDF. But then once you've chosen the file, you upload, and then you'll just see it down in the associated document as the PDF. And if you've got multiple transactions, or multiple receipts for this one transaction, you can, of course, just click back on the. You would just add another row for another attachment. Okay. Anytime you need to see an attachment, like if you're an approver and you want to take a look at the attachment, then you just click on the View button, and it'll launch Adobe to show you the scanned copy of the receipt. And of course, you delete it if you need to get rid of that attachment and upload another one. So again, if multiple attachments are needed, then you just add a row and put in another comment, and then click the attach. So once you've got your attachment up, you just click on OK. Bring you back to the reconcile page. You'll notice now that in the bubble, for the comments bubble, that there are little dots, and that just means that a comment has been entered. All right, to take a look at what the chart fields, or the budget combination of where this transaction is getting charged. Everyone, when we set up your card underneath your employee ID, everyone got a default set of chart fields. Okay, and chart fields, I'm just going to click on this. It's a piece of paper with 3 arrows coming out of it. You just click on that, and this is just this is called your default set of chart fields. So every time a transaction comes in, it gets this default set. Okay, and it's the account, the fund, the department, fund source, program class, and all of these chart fields. So this transaction is $105, and it's 100% to this budget combination. If I needed to change it, let's say we had a 50-50 split or a dollar amount split, I would just change either the percent or the amount. So I can put in 50 and hit my tab, and then I've got a plus button. And it's going to ask me the number of rows to add. And so it copies basically it copies the first row and it's split now across two different combinations. And of course, if it needed to, half of this went to one department, half of it went to another department, then you would key in the other department for where it needed to be charged. Okay, so that's how you take an amount and split it out across multiple chart fields. And you can do that again based off of the percent or the amount. If you need to do any type of partial lookups for, let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and I want to change this back to 100% and get rid of this line. But anytime you're on a page and you need to do a partial lookup, like you know the account begins with 615, for example, you can just put in 615 and do the lookup, and it'll bring you a list of just all of the account codes or whatever field that you're using that begin with 615. That's how you do a partial lookup. But if you know it, of course, you can just type it in. So once you have your chart fields, is what these are called, correct, you just click on OK, and then you want to run what's called. You can either leave it as a budget status of not checked, and once you set it to verified, there's actually a budget validation process that will run every night on all verified charges. So you don't have to run validate budget if you know your combination is right. But if you want to make sure that you've got the right combination, let's say it's not your normal default one, but you want to just make sure that it's correct, then you click the validate budget. And the validate budget, so this little arrow up here will spin, and it usually takes about 30 to 45 seconds, depending for each one of the transactions to run, or about a minute if you've got multiple selected to run. So that's really, as a card holder, that's your main responsibility, is to go in and do your attachments to the transactions, and to make sure your budget combination is correct, and then you set it to verified. And once this finishes, I will go back to the home page, and you'll now see how this Toner Charge Corporation will have moved from my pagelet of stage charges down to the pagelet so now it's gone to a valid budget status. If I come back over to my new tab, this was the transaction that I was on, and if I click the refresh, it comes off of this Pcard stage charges, and it's now sitting down in the list of the verified charges. Okay, so if I'm the approver for Mr. Armstrong, then I would see these charges come up. Again, I would click on them, and I can go in and open it up. And if I wanted to see all of his transactions, which if you click on the employee ID, you may see transactions that are still staged, and you only want to see the verified ones. So it's usually a good idea just to click on the transaction number, and it'll just open up that one transaction. And then so now if I was ready to approve this transaction, then I could, if I had multiple set up, I could click select all, and then I could either just change the status manually from verified to approved, or if I've got them selected, then I can just click approved, and it'll set them all to approved. And then I hit save. So that's pretty much the process for how you go in and reconcile and approve transactions. I will, if you've got any questions, there is a box on the in the webinar that says questions, where you can type it in and they'll be sent to me. So does anybody have any questions about the process that I've gone through? And again, you should be getting your user IDs and passwords today to get into the system, today or tomorrow, to get into the system to be able to start doing this reconciliation process. I did get a note that if you have questions about your budget combinations, how those kind of really how they're set up or how they're structured, and then you can talk to the budget office about that. They can provide you with how your particular department or program is set up in the what combinations you need. I don't see any. I don't see where anyone has put in any questions. Here we got a question coming through. Let me take a look at it. So it says the question is, so will we have to input transactions like we did in the old system? No, each morning the transactions, that's a good question. Each morning the transactions automatically load into the system. So if you use your card, then on one day it posts the next day. Typically it posts, with most vendors, merchants, it posts the next day, and then we get it the following day. So you don't have to key in the transactions. They're already loaded into the system for you. If you ever log in and don't see a transaction, then it would be a good, a good idea to contact your procurement department to make sure that something's not going, not wrong, but maybe you had a new card issued or something like that that hasn't been put into the system yet. But if you see it in your Works application, or if you see it on any type of report, but it's not in Team Georgia Marketplace, then that's something we would need to know about. But it does, the transactions automatically load in. So you're just going to want to make sure that your statement that you get each month matches the list of all the transactions loaded in. Question is, will this webinar be offered again? This webinar is being recorded, so you will get an email on how to access this webinar, because it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. Okay, so I had a question. Someone wanted me to go in and show how to copy a line to split the cost center for a particular transaction. You click on this distribution button, and if you need to split it, then you would just change your percentage. For example, if I wanted to do an 80%, 20% split, I put in my percent. And then I click the plus button. It'll ask me the number of rows to add. I click OK. And then it's just split it out 80-20. And then I just change the whatever it's actually what we call a department ID now. But you would change that. Or if you're a different program, you would change your program. And then you would just click OK. And then that splits it out into the two different areas. Again, because I made a change, it's now not, budget status is not checked, so I can run the validate budget on it again because I've made a change. Someone's asking if I can show how to set up the link to reconcile again. I think you mean to get the link into the system. You will be receiving an email that gives you the URL to get into the production environment. with your user ID and your password. And again, that is if you have taken the class and passed the test, then it gets set up into the system, and so you'll be sent that either today or tomorrow. If you haven't taken your test or taken your class and passed your test on the online class, then you're probably going to be getting an email about that as well. But we don't give access into the system until those things are done. And the mentioned uploading receipts. Yes, so you will upload the invoices that you get from the vendors for each one of the transactions. So each transaction that you have, you need to have a scanned copy of the receipt that they gave you for that transaction. And that goes into this comments link. That's a good question. Someone says, what if a receipt has sales tax by mistake? Do we do anything differently with that particular receipt? Okay, so usually what the process is so if you've got a charge that is that you want to dispute basically because they've added sales tax and things like that and you shouldn't have had sales tax, you're still going to have to reconcile that transaction. But what you can do is on this billing tab, there is a dispute amount. So let's just say that we're somewhere where there's a 5% sales tax and there's 5% of this $105 is in dispute. So you can put in this dispute amount and put that in and then just hit save. And then it will, and so basically if you're going to expect a $5 credit at some point, you wait till you get that transaction, that $5 credit coming in, and you come in and you mark this disputed amount as that you got the credit. Okay, so you still have to, even if you get charges that you are disputing, you still go ahead the same process and dispute them with the bank like you normally do now or with the merchant. But the state of Georgia still has to pay for those transactions, so they all still have to be approved. But you just want to mark them in dispute and then say that you got the credit by clicking this credit collected. And you can see a list of all of your disputed items by just clicking on this review disputes checkbox. So someone said they got their login for TeamWorks Financials, which is great, and it's different than your HCM, and yes, that is correct. So those two systems have different user IDs and passwords. So that's just how they're set up. So there won't be any conflict. I believe your HCM is an employee ID, and then your TeamWorks is usually your first initial and your last name. That they provide with you. But yeah, no, there won't be any conflict. Those are completely separate IDs. Got a question that says, if you have more than one charge on your invoice, you have to make a scanned copy of each item that you purchase. No, it's one. This is one transaction, so you would have one. But if you make 5 purchases, then you would have five. You basically have one attachment per transaction. Okay, so this is not down to the line level, but it's down to the you just have one receipt per transaction, not per item ordered. So for example, if I come back to my, close this down and come back to my home page, if I want to take a look at this Staples charge, they would have sent me one invoice for this full amount that lists out everything on there. Actually, this is just one transaction. Let me go back to find one that's got multiple. I saw one earlier, a bigger charge, this one here. So this is a $200 transaction. If I click on the line details for this transaction, I can see that there's 22 things that were ordered from Staples. I just have to attach one receipt for this entire transaction. Okay, and I did get a note from Kathy, Kathy Cordell, that if just so you know that you'll need to still send in your packets for the September that you're working on. So still send in the packets to them, and you'll also do this online reconciliation for your September statement. So then the question says, for what about items that are out of stock but will ship later and they bill you later, which results in a charge that is less than the initial invoice? Well, that would be a separate transaction number that comes through. So you would get a separate transaction in this column here on the far right. That would be a separate transaction, and so that would be a separate invoice. So they would send you an invoice for just that particular thing that they shipped. So most merchants, they only charge you for what they've shipped, and they send an invoice, and then if there's back order, they charge again for that amount, and then you get a separate receipt for that. So you wouldn't need to attach the original receipt for the first time it's ordered, just the one for that particular charge. Okay, somebody said, what page do we go to when we receive a credit? So the credits are still going to show up on the regular reconciliation page. For example, here's an Office Max credit. So the credit's still going to show up on this page, on your normal pagelet. It gets reconciled on the normal statement. The credits are the same. You just code them to where they would go for the budget. And again, they would have a receipt. But if you're putting something in dispute, for example, let's say I wanted to dispute this entire transaction. I still reconcile the transaction, and you put in comments. A lot of times people will put in comments in the comments bubble of why they're disputing it. But you put in on the billing tab, you put in the dispute amount. So if I'm disputing the whole thing, I click Save. And then underneath this Review Disputes, I can do a search, and it would just show me the list of all of the things that are outstanding, the disputes that I'm waiting on. So there was a good question. Someone said, when we dispute tax and submit the tax exemption form, we have to fill out a telephone record form to show when we called or contacted the vendor regarding the tax issue. Can I load the form for that along with the receipt? So I think, Kathy, that would be a question for you, is are you okay with them putting that into the putting that form as an attachment on the transaction? And Kathy said, yes, please attach the form. This page is taking a while to load, but it shows you it just shows you the transaction and the dispute amount. It's got that little checkbox that says credit collected, and you just check that box when you get the credit. And so it doesn't have any functionality besides just a reminder of these are the things that I'm waiting for a credit, and then when I get the credit, I just say I got the credit. The credit came through, because it could be in a it could be in a different monthly statement. A lot of times if it happened at the end of, you dispute it and you're not going to get your credit until the following billing period. It's just a way for you to track the list of things that you're waiting to get a credit on. All right, well, it looks like that's all of the questions that we've had for today. Again, this is going to be, thank you for your attention, and great questions. And as you go through, again, when you log in, if you don't see any transactions, contact Kathy and Bruce in the procurement department, and we'll work on getting your transactions loaded in, or it might be something that we did find some people that had they have user IDs, but they don't have access to the Pcard module. So we're trying to figure out maybe they didn't finish the class, and so. But if that's the case, again, reach out to Kathy and Bruce, and we'll figure out how to get you access in there. Hopefully, you should be able to take the class. Looks like one more thing came through. All right, Kathy was said, you might want to know that for all purchases through the TGM Marketplace, you do not need to attach the transaction approval form. They will only need to attach the transaction approval form when they do an on-site purchase. Okay, so we'll go through tomorrow on how to do a requisition and order from statewide contract items and pay with the Pcard. So Kathy was saying you don't have to do an approval form, which I'm not exactly familiar with y'all's approval form. But you just only have to attach it when you do an on-site purchase. You'll need to attach that into the transaction as well. All right, well, thank you for your time today, and we'll speak with you soon. Thank you.